Welcome to Miniature Realms. My name's Stuart and welcome to number 5, I believe, in my vlog series for my Warlord Epic Battles Waterloo stroke Napoleonic series. So those of you who've been following the series and following the other videos on the channel will know I've slowly been working through lots of different painting tutorials and things, but doing my own projects along the side. And I'm focusing on sort of 2 battles which I can build forces towards, one in the peninsula and one as a section of Waterloo. And the reason I'm doing those 2 is just to give me a bit of a painting goal, really, rather than just painting generic units. I like to paint something towards an action. The end result is the same. I end up with a collection of miniatures that I can use in lots of other games and things, but I quite like the idea of working towards a bit of a themed project. It definitely gets me enthused, gets me reading history and things like that as well. So as probably mentioned in the last vlog, my progress has been slowed a little bit by the family. My household and I managed to catch COVID towards the end of January, and it sort of disrupted us for over 3 weeks as we kind of took it in turns to catch it, and none of us are very, very poorly, so nothing wrong there, but it took it in turns to catch it. I tested positive all the way through, so there was no kind of early release for me. If those of you in the UK know what we're talking about, where you can end your isolation early. So I had to do the full stretch, and then my youngest got it last, which means he was off nursery for longer and things. And it's just, yeah, work-wise, for someone who's self-employed who works at home, it was a bit of a nightmare. So I've kind of lost a lot of free time, really, just because the kids are around, but also because I've been trying to catch up on my own workload in time in the evenings, which normally would be my free time. So rather than ploughing ahead and now showing you a whole finished brigade of British infantry, which is probably what I'd have liked to have got to by this stage, I've been focusing on some smaller projects, things that I can do in shorter periods of time. That's why I've done those things, really. But let's start off with this. This is something I had a spare kind of hour or so the other day, and I didn't have much time to do anything else. I wouldn't have got much done if I was painting a full unit, but I really wanted to have a go at painting these, so I did just paint a couple of French officers. Now you'll notice the second officer has a shako. I did a head swap. You'll have seen that earlier, one of my earlier vlogs. I did the same for the British, just swapped it with the officer from the infantry command strip. I'll pop a couple of little images on the screen now. They're just sort of showing what I did, but it's all very, very, very simple head swap. Even at this smaller scale, that's not too tricky to do. Even if you don't like doing too many conversions and things, you can't really do arm repositions with the French guys because they're kind of moulded solid to the body. That would mean completely resculpting, which some people may be able to do. Yeah, they're just pretty standard things. Enjoy painting them. I enjoy doing little bases like that have a little bit of character. So my kind of brigade level, maybe even divisional level, will have sort of 2 guys on a round base like that. When I do the big personalities, which hopefully Warlord will hear some more about that soon, but I think they've dropped pretty heavy hints that there will be some on the way. So when Wellington arrives and things, I'll probably have him on a base, maybe with 3 or 4 people on there, just to make him really stand out. But in terms of, sort of brigade commanders, a couple of horses on the base is all you really need, and I'm quite happy with the way it's come out. For those of you following all the epic content on the channel, or most of it, you may well have seen that I finished La Haye Saint. The video started as what was going to be a bit of a review with some pictures at the end of it painted, and then because of the things I said, the delays in my own hobby, when I grabbed a few minutes hobby here and there, I just put my camera on and hit record, and just added a little bit of voiceover, sort of talking through the process as I did, and turned it into a slightly more interesting video. And I may well do sort of similar things in the future. So rather than full-blown tutorials, more kind of stick the camera on and talk about it a little bit afterwards, a bit more of a feature video, so somewhere in between a review and a vlog and a tutorial. So let me know if you thought that was cool. But I'm really happy with the model. It's the same as any Sarissa model would be, really. It's a sort of very true 15mm. They have quite large footprints, so in some ways, if you want to make the most of your table real estate, the argument for using a 10mm version on a 6x4 is very strong. It really depends on the type of scenario you want to play, I think. and that will be the same with any of their buildings. I love their buildings, and I do use them, but sometimes, depending on the game I'm playing, I may opt for smaller as well. I think I'm going to use that one for the scenario I'm going to be talking about a bit later in this video. But we will see. I can always adjust over time. I was talking a little bit over in the comments the other day with Alex from Storm of Steel, and he was thinking about whether it was going to be big enough to use to play with sort of 15 or 18 mil sharp practice. And you know what? I think it is. The roofs are all removable. And so you can definitely get enough miniatures in each of the buildings. I think it would work very well from that. So I don't know what that says about the footprint and whether it's a little bit too big, but I think it looks really cool. I love the kit. I'm very pleased I've got it. If it turns out that it is too big, I can always look at picking up a 10mm version, a 3D printed version. There seems to be a lot of them on eBay as well, but I'm pretty happy with it. For those of you who've been following the previous vlogs, you'll know that I'm working on the two battles which I mentioned earlier in the video, and the first one was an attack on Gramoro Mayor at the northern part of the Battle of Vittoria. If I scroll back through my notes here on the screen, you will maybe remember that map from the last video, and then from that I've extrapolated a order of battle for both sides, and a bit of a scenario, and the aim is to do exactly the same for a section of Waterloo. And I think I've already mentioned I'm going to be looking at De Erlon's Corps, and there's a nice scenario actually in the back of the Black Powder Waterloo campaign rulebook based on that attack, but it doesn't give me all the information I needed, and the scenario in its entirety isn't quite right for me, but I'll definitely be picking chunks from it. I think one of the major changes really is just the way the orders of battle have done. I am all for abstraction in games. I will be using that a lot, especially when it comes to positioning and table space and ground scale, and the way that will work to fit it on the smaller table. But I also like more realistic order of battles. I really like digging into the history there. So Warlord's way of doing it is to kind of say you need a brigade with 3 Highland regiments and a light regiment or something like that, whereas I prefer to have, if possible, the whole brigade that was there fielded, and I like to know the colonels' names and all that kind of stuff. Just little bits of added detail that really brings some of the historical enjoyment to me. That's where I get my historical enjoyment is sort of researching and saying they're represented on the table, rather than every single minuscule button, the exact right colour, and a ground scale worked out to the millimetre to make sure it's all perfectly laid out. And so it's kind of a bit of a mix really for me, and we all have different things from the game. But anyway, this is from the Osprey Waterloo book volume 3, the new 3-volume series. There's a single Waterloo Osprey book, and there's the newer 3-book series, both really good. But there's this map here just on De Erlon's attack, which is really useful. Now I couldn't quite fit all of that on the sort of table sizes I'm looking at home. I'd love to squeeze it all on for a larger game, so I won't be looking at doing any of the work around the Papillote Farm over there. Much more focused around this area. There's a really nice key there, so it really showed me exactly which regiments were in which positions, which was exactly what I was after. A lot of maps sort of show you brigade positions or division positions. This went the other way, went right down to regiment, which is perfect. So I kind of started drawing lines around it, so that's a rough square there drawn, sort of how much of the battle table would I squeeze on, and obviously Myla Hastings is going to look much bigger because of the size of the model, and this is where I start abstracting, as we've just mentioned, and then I've kind of turned on its side and shaded out there. But I think I wanted to get in all of these British units here that you can see within the square, and what's labelled as T, U and V there, those ones, I was quite happy to miss these ones off the side. They're from a different brigade, but I did want to get both of the French cuirassier brigades in, so that one will make it onto the table, just to sort of balance the sides out a little bit. And the same with this division here, which is labelled as 11, 12, 13, 14. That's quite important to the game as well. It'd be very easy just to cut that off and fit them on the table easier, but then the British have an awful lot more, so you could cut this section off here as well and have a much more manageable game, which would be the sensible thing to do. But as we'll come to in a moment, these regiments here and these regiments here are really flavourful for the scenario, and I didn't really want to miss them out, so I'm going to try and squeeze an awful lot on, and maybe try and do it an 8x4, but also be able to squeeze it onto a 6x4 if possible. One of the good things about Waterloo is that it was a small battlefield, and there were multiple sort of lines of troops in certain places rather than one thin line, which does help with the frontages in this game. So you've got two lines of regiments there, so these are Dutch and Belgians here. You've got two lines of them there, and these are slightly behind, so it enables you to bring things on in waves. And if you're halving distances or using centimetres, your table width isn't so much of a problem, because you deploy models quite far onto the table and they're not in the action because of the short ranges involved, which just give you some space. And because of all the French are coming in and column here, you know what, it might actually work. So there, you can see I've sort of grayed it out a little bit, but anyway, I'm babbling loads here, and this is probably sending you all to sleep, but I've come up with a starter order of battle, which I'm going to start working towards. You see the little tick boxes there were units that will appear in my Peninsular campaign as well, and already ticked because they're already painted. So you have seven regiments of cavalry there, British cavalry, 2 brigades. You've got the Household Cavalry Brigade and the Union Cavalry Brigade, so all very, very famous stuff. And I wanted to get those all in, and if I scroll back up, that's those there, and you can see they're off the table, but they come in and they charge. Some charge down here, some go across here. So it would be a real shame not to have that iconic moment as part of this battle. So I'm going to make sure that they are on there, even though they don't technically fit within the starting positions on my little rectangle there. And then we've got the King's German Legion Brigade, which is obviously really important around La Haye Sainte. And then we've got the Netherlands Infantry Division, and you've got not all of it, but you've got the 1st Brigade's worth there, and that's those troops there. And then we also have elements of the 5th Division, so as part of the reserve, 2 brigades of those. So you've got some. I mean, I live in Gloucester, so having the North Gloucestershire on there is nice. We want to have some 95th because they retreated from the sandpit, etc., etc. And then we've got the Royal Scots, the Black Watch, etc., etc., and the Gordon Highlanders. You definitely want to have those sort of flavourful troops in there as well. So it provides, this order of battle provides a really nice mix of famous British regiments and some colourful flavour, having some Dutch and Belgians in there, and that's the kind of thing I wanted from my collection. So picking this part for the battles just seems to be a really perfect thing to do, and that's why I want to make sure that all of these regiments are squeezed onto the table there. And then when we get to the French, equally important, so I wanted to squeeze both lots of cuirassiers on there so that it balanced out the numbers a little bit. And then I've added the 3rd Regiment of Lancers, which are all the way over here. I think it's these guys here, because they countercharge the Ponsonby's charge when we come over to here. So I really wanted to have that as part of the scenario, and I intend to add it in, but I didn't want to include all of this cavalry because they clearly weren't all engaged in the centre where I'm fighting this little bit. Hopefully you're all still following me here, and you're not too sick with me sort of scrolling up and down. So we go back to the French anyway, and it's pretty easy. You've got 3 divisions. Originally that said maybe because I wasn't sure I was going to do, but 3 divisions of infantry, all with 2 battalions in each regiment. So 6 brigades in total. It's nice and easy to work out. And the Marconnet's division here, which was the bit that was just off the table, which I was considering what I wanted in the game, that's where they lose the eagle. That's when Ewart, as part of the charges those columns and gets the eagle, and that's why I wanted that in the game. and that's why the Lancers are there, because they countercharge afterwards. So I'm sure if you're watching this, most of you will know that part of the story from Waterloo. So and then I can't scroll up any further, and it's outside of the area that I've set to view for this recording, but then there's also extra artillery. So if you look at the artillery here, this is all the divisional artillery. I'm pretty much including it all now. I'm going to end up just putting it along the table edge, bottom of the table edge there. We'll have to make sure the ranges work, but that's obviously part of the ground battery, and they will need them to sort of do the pounding beforehand. But that's where I'm at for now, really, in terms of organising that. I haven't worked out the full scenario. I want to build in there some victory points around who's holding La Haye Sainte, and obviously that does fall later in the day in the real battle, but I definitely want to build something around who controls that. I'd like to build some victory points around the cavalry charges themselves and give them some objectives. In particular, I quite like the idea that the Union Brigade that end up charging across and attacking this French division here. I've forgotten his name already. Let's scroll down to the bottom. Marconnet's division. I want to set a victory point and some way of capturing an eagle, and can it be done? And it'd be really fun to break out that sort of special edition, limited edition model that we got with our starter sets as well. And then also the French been able to successfully countercharge with those Lancers. So just picking kind of narrative key point elements into the battle that if you're able to achieve those goals, you get victory points. So it's not really completely about who wins, it's about achieving victory points within the given scenario. So I'm going to take the Warlord Games scenario and kind of take the bits I like out of it and adapt it, but it's in those early sort of sketching out stages at the moment. Let me know what you think. Still will be a lot of miniatures on a 6x4 and 8x4 table, but I believe because of the way they're in sort of layers in lines rather than one thin long red line, and because the French are coming in column, I think it'll fit. It'll be a lot of miniatures on the table, but that's what we want as well. It'll absolutely look fantastic. And before I let you go, I thought I'd talk a little bit about where I was at with the terrain for the sort of the Waterloo 100 Days side of the kind of collection. So I'm a big fan of Geek Villain mats, and you'll see we're on that website on the screen now. And the pictures you've seen of La Haye Sainte are on their summer mat, I believe it is. And I've got two of those. One I actually painted my own roads on for my American Civil War project, just because I couldn't get at the time the roads to fit where I needed to, and putting texture paint on the fleece cloth mat worked really well. And you don't have to just use it for the one scenario, but it's one's got some extra roads painted on it. It's the only way to get them where you really want. Now you can buy a Waterloo mat. I'm pretty sure Geek Villain do a Waterloo mat. The problem I find with a 6x4 Waterloo mat is that obviously you should be playing the game in 6mm or something. There we go. Click on it now. You can see there's a lovely 6x4 Waterloo mat in the lovely fleece stuff. Absolutely fantastic, but it's just scale wise, it's just not going to work for what I need it to do, really. So I've gone back to just using my standard summer field mat, because I think it's great, and there it is on the website. And you've seen it in the pictures around La Haye Sainte. And then I've done a little top-down image of what I have so far, so that you can see that on the screen now, and that shows you the position of La Haye Sainte on there and how much footprint that takes up compared to what I drew out in the little map in the previous section. And you'll see some road on there, and that's from Deep Cut Studio. They do rolls of neoprene road, and it's really nice, but it doesn't work so well over a fleece mat. And when you use a fleece mat and you put things underneath it to give you your undulations and hills and things, the roads just don't go over it, and it looks pretty scruffy. So I wanted a better way of doing roads, and that brings us on to why I've got Geek Villain's website up on this screen, is they do some new self-cut cloth roads. So if we click on view all, and you'll see they got lots of different things. So it comes in 3 sizes, comes in 10 centimeters, 6 centimeters, and 4. And I commented on a picture the other day, and Mac from Geek Villain suggested that for Epic, using the 4 centimeter wide roads. And so you've got modern roads, you've got grass roads, which is kind of earth, and then you've got cobblestone. I'm thinking the earthy grass roads are the way to go, but I will have a little look at the cobblestone here at the same time. And it's very nice stuff, but I'm pretty sure that this will be the way to go. So what you do is you get a 6x4 sheet of this stuff for £45, and you get all of that to cut out and then place on your cloth mats, and then it should follow the undulations. And if I click on the image and let that focus in, it's a little bit blurry there, but you get the idea of the quality of the artwork. It's the same quality as on the mats, which I love, and it will match fairly well, I think, with the field thing I've got at the moment. So that's my plan, is to pick up one of these, and that will give me absolutely loads and loads of options to build in the roads. Now I haven't bought it yet. I'm open to suggestions, so pop your comments below. Well, how do you do roads? I know Warlord and Sarissa between them. I suppose Sarissa, I've got those lovely MDF roads with the stickers that some people have reviewed. I know, watched on Leon T66 channel. He did a review of them. They look really nice, but if I was using flat neoprene mats, I think that would be the way to go. But because for my historical gaming, I'm using these cloth mats and fleece mats. It's just not what I need, really. I need something that will fit smoothly over undulations, and this seems to be perfect for it, really. And I've owned 4 or 5 Geek Villain mats now, and I absolutely love them. And I want to buy more and more and more. There's a sticker on them that says, warning, these are highly addictive, and you think, well, how can a mat be addictive? But they're so good. I really, really like them, and makes me want to buy more and more and more mats. But I'm buying more mats than I'm actually playing games at the moment, so it's definitely not time to buy a new mat. But this, I think, would be a good option, and it will cover me for an awful lot of historical gaming. There's loads and loads and loads of it there. The dirt road thing is what I'll need for most of my gaming, and I think it'll be a really, really good investment. So that's what I'm planning on purchasing. I'm also very interested, it's not so much for the Waterloo thing, but they do rivers as well. There's quite a lot of river sections. Unfortunately, the close-up picture isn't of a river, which is not super helpful. Let's try and zoom in and see what we can see. Yeah, you can't see very closely. It's very hard to tell the quality of the artwork when you don't have a close-up like that. But anyway, totally rambling at the end, which is no surprise to any of you that do make it to the end of these videos. So that's where I'm up to, really. As I said, my plans have been slightly slowed by just work now more than anything else. I've got a lot of work on. I've got a family holiday I'm just about to go on for a few days away, seeing some family and things like that as well. And I've got loads and loads of commissions to do. I'm doing some stuff for Adepticon charity, which I've mentioned on another video. So I'm kind of stuck at the moment in terms of being able to really get my head down and just plough in and paint loads and loads of things. And I want to do some more painting tutorials for you guys as well. By this time, I really wanted to have done some French cavalry and be working on French infantry, and that really is my next goals. And I wanted to kind of get a few more painting tutorials out and then slow them down a bit, really, just because it's slowing me down, and that's not a violin moment. I love doing YouTube and I love doing the videos for you guys, but I wanted to try and put out a couple of tutorials a week, and I'm not even managing 2 a month at the moment. So at some point I'll have to decide whether I do a tutorial or paint a brigade of my own troops. So that will slow down slightly. I've got some Army Painter speed paints, just the small set. The main set, unfortunately, is not out to the end of March. I hoped it would be the answer to the French, but the High Lord blue in it is too light. So for those of you who are familiar with contrast, it's a little bit darker than Talisar blue, but it's got that same kind of almost electric blue elements to it. So, and it's just not good enough it's not dark enough for the French, so I'm still going to be using Ultramarine. So if I get around to doing the French infantry before I get that at the end of the march, which I will do, my tutorials will be with contrast on that, I imagine. I just can't get hold of the stuff I need in the right frame of time. Anyway, I'll stop there. Clearly need to. Thanks very much for watching, guys. I'll catch you all soon.